Paranormal Dimensions is a regular feature on Mondays on the Paranormal UK radio network. Any opinions or comments made by any guest are their own, and they do not necessarily reflect any of the presenters or network's opinions.
Whatever or whoever it is that haunts that house, the manifestations are the most powerful and evil in their experience. They all mention nameless horrors.
This is Malcolm Robinson, and you're listening to the Paranormal UK radio network, the UK's biggest paranormal network, and this is Paranormal Dimensions with David Young.
Hello and welcome to the show. Thank you for that introduction, Malcolm. And you'll hear Malcolm mention again during the show. Once again on this show, we'll be delving into the paranormal world of ghosts and poltergeists with our special guest, Darren W. Ritson. But just before that, as always, if you'd like to get in touch with me, it's David Young, 2qn at yahoo.co.uk. That's David Young, 2qn at yahoo.co.uk. Email, of course. And please don't forget there's a Paranormal Dimensions Facebook page if you'd like to come and seek that out, and you get information on the coming shows, and also you'll get the recordings from the most recent shows. Now on to today's guest, Darren W. Ritson. Darren has written around 20 books on ghosts and hauntings and has been a member of the Incorporated Society for Psychical Research, SPR, since 2006. Darren has travelled the country, lecturing on the poltergeist phenomenon, and has been invited to conduct talks with some of the leading academic research associations into psychic study, such as the SPR, the Ghost Club, and the Scottish Society for Psychical Research, SSPR. Dan has also lectured at Northumbria University after receiving invites from Dr. Nick Neve, Head of Psychology and Parapsychology. In 2006, Darren and his fellow investigator Michael J. Hallowell made a life-changing decision to investigate an alleged case of poltergeist infestation in an otherwise normal family home in the town of South Shields, Tyne and Wear, UK, obviously. The only caveat that needs to be added to this fact is that at the time they had absolutely no idea that what they were about to do would change their lives to such an incalculable degree. In their book about the affair, The South Shields Poltergeist, One Family's Fight Against an Invisible Intruder, they spoke of how every paranormal investigator dreams of their big case, a circumstance so bizarre and so verifiable that it truly seems to prove that the world is not just stranger than we know, but stranger than we possibly can know. So I take great pleasure in introducing Darren W. Ritson. Hello Darren, welcome to the show.
Hello there, David. Nice to be here. Thank you.
It's I've been looking forward to this one, as I've just said to you off air. I've been following your career, if you like, if you want to call it that, over the years, and it's all very interesting.
And you?
Obviously, I called you a ghost hunter of sorts. You're a very prolific writer about ghosts, and it seems to be. Yes. And it seems to be mostly in the North Country. Sorry, I interrupted you there, but
no, it's all right. Yes, a lot of the books that I've written about are in the north of England. There's a book called Supernatural North, and I've done a lot of regional guides for the northeast of England, where I've done places like Newcastle upon Tyne, Ghosts of Newcastle upon Tyne. I've done a Tyneside book as well. Northumberland, Berwick. I know Berwick's actually in Northumberland, but Berwick had so many fabulous accounts of ghosts and alleged hauntings. I thought, well, Berwick actually warrants a book for itself. So I managed to get the 40,000 words required for that one,
wow.
which the publisher was happy about. So was that, to be honest. Carlisle, places like that, yeah. But there is a couple of books where I do head further south, places like Devon and London and Norfolk and places like that. When I've managed to get out and about and down there on my holidays, I always manage to squeeze a little bit of ghost hunting in, or, you know, like visiting places and asking about ghosts and talking to landlords and owners of places and things like that. And I've managed to collate quite a bit of information in regards to ghosts down there. And so there's one or two books which spread a little bit further than the north of England.
Yeah.
And I've managed to get up to Scotland as well on occasions as well. Yeah.
I don't know about you, how you feel, but I think the north seems to hold a lot more atmospheric ghost stories. I don't know if it's my imagination, you know,
well,
like Scottish ghosts and things like that, you know.
Yeah. Well, I think that might have a large part to play with the history that's in relation to, like, the England and Scottish borders and the old battles and battlefields of times gone by, and the blood-soaked land of, you know, when the England's fought the Scots, and years before that the Picts were fighting the Romans and things like that, you know, and obviously there was a big wall built to keep them all out. I think it was the Picts that were fighting the Romans.
Yeah, it was, and also and the Picts and the Scots as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I seem to remember from my school days.
Yeah. Yeah, so it is a bit of a turbulent area up in the north of England.
In fact, I think the Scots have fought everybody, haven't they?
Yes.
Over the years.
What can I say? I don't know why, because the Scots are lovely people.
Yeah.
I know lots of Scottish people in the nice, but I don't know, people seem to just argue and fight and battle with each other. They have done since man has been around, haven't they? They're just fighting really for
it's getting like that again, isn't it?
Ownership of castles and things.
Oh, do you know Malcolm Robinson much at all?
I do.
You do?
Yeah. Friend of mine. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a good friend of ours, isn't he? He's just moved back to Scotland, actually. He lived in Hastings.
Yes, that's right. I used to correspond with Malcolm back in the 90s. In fact, to be honest, Malcolm Robinson was the first ever real ghost hunter, in inverted commas, that I ever sort of contacted. I don't know how I managed to find his details, but somewhere I must have come across a publication or a magazine or something, and his name was in there. And I decided to write to him. Good old-fashioned pen and paper.
Yeah.
There was emails around in those days. So I sent him a message on a bit of paper asking, "Dear Malcolm, my name is Darren, and, you know, I'm an investigator into ghosts, and I like photographing haunted places. How do I go about taking it a step further and becoming an investigator?" And he pointed us in the right direction, and we sort of kept in touch for a while back in the early days.
Yeah, he's very open to contact, actually, Malcolm, isn't he?
Oh, he is. Yes, he'll talk to anybody. He's as long as it's ghost related or UFO related.
That's right.
He's prolific in his research, and he's never stopped, has he? For years.
That's right. No, he's been on this show a couple of times, actually. The last one was just a couple of months ago, actually.
Yeah, I think I saw the flyer, the thing for it. I've listened to one or two over the years as well. So, yeah.
There's a bit of a story with the Malcolm Robinson show, actually. I'll tell you what happened. We actually did half the show, and for some strange reason, the recorder packed up. So and I don't think anyone can tell where the join is. We did it in two separate shows.
All right.
So that's a bit of a challenge, anyone out there who wants to have a listen to that one. See if you can see where the join is.
That just means it's edited together, like, really well, then, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. He's a fantastic storyteller. Nice chap as well. I like Malcolm a lot.
Yeah, he's great. Well, an old colleague of mine. Well, a colleague of mine. He's not an old. Well, he is getting old now, like, but
careful
in the wrong sense of the word. Mike Halliwell.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Who I wrote a few books with, but 4 books I've wrote with Mike. Mike was a colleague of Malcolm Robinson, and I remember meeting Mike in the early days for the first time. He was involved with a paranormal research society called Avalon Skies, which was based in the northeast of England. This was way back in 2001 or 2002. And I went along one day to meet everybody, because I was, I wanted to get involved and see what they were doing. And Mike walked in one day, that day, and I met Mike for the first time, and for some reason, he had been away to a Lapis conference in Blackpool or somewhere over that area, and he mentioned Malcolm's name, and I went, Malcolm Robinson, and he went, oh yeah, he's a good friend of mine, Malcolm Robinson, and I was like, yeah, I don't believe this. I went, I used to write to Malcolm Robinson, but I'd kind of lost touch with Malcolm, sort of thing, after a few letters or so, you know?
Yeah.
And it was like a small world, really. And I was like, oh, well, Mike, nice to meet you, Mike. And can't believe you actually know Malcolm Robinson. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was getting worried I might not see him anymore, but since he's moved to Scotland. But hopefully I'll be seeing him in at the Outer Limits conference in I think
yes.
I think I can't remember. Is it August next year again? But
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure. There's not many conferences, and
I know the thing is it's been cancelled a couple of times, unfortunately because of all the lockdowns and things. But
yeah,
it's been redated a couple of times, so I think it's next August. But
yeah.
Oh no, it might be May. Anyway, I'll have to check on that. But anyway, well, I digress.
Anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. But so, do you go to any conferences and things yourself? Do you travel around? Do you give talks and things?
I have done in the past, but as I was saying to, I said to somebody the other day on the ASAP website, I'm more frightened of public speaking than I am of poltergeists.
I know how you feel. Yeah.
I'm okay when I get started, and sometimes I'm mumbling, I stutter, and sometimes I kind of recall things, and when I feel like I'm put on the spot, I'm kind of like, I kind of get nervous.
Yeah.
So I need notes in front of us when I'm talking. Unlike Malcolm can talk for like days on end.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Without even referring to notes. He's just so knowledgeable. And it's one of the things I love about Malcolm, to be honest. He's an absolute brilliant speaker. But I have done some in the early days. I did talks at the Ghost Club in London. I think I did 2 with them. One was on the South Shields case, and I think one was on Willington Mill.
Oh, right.
We did another, Mike and I. And I've talked at the Society for Psychical Research in London as well.
Oh, right.
That was on South Shields. In the Scottish Society for Psychical Research, I went up to Glasgow with Trisha Robertson. She was in charge at the time, and we did a big talk up there. And I've done 1 or 2 in my area, just like charity dues. We used to do a lot of charity events where we would guest speak, and then everyone there for the evening would go on a ghost hunt, and we would just join in with a ghost hunt and sort of thing, you know. We did a kind of few of them. There was one of them I did, and Richard Felix was actually there.
Oh, right, yeah.
He was on before us. And then he did his talk, which was fascinating, as always.
He is, yeah. He's been on a show as well.
He's another great storyteller. He's another great speaker as well. And then we followed him, which was some act to follow, I have to say. But that was, and Mole did a ghost hunt after that. Everybody joined in, and Mole had a good night. It was great. Yeah. So I've done a fair bit of speaking, but to be honest, I hate it. Being up there in front of everybody, I'm quite... Believe it or not, I'm quite a shy and retiring person. I've been getting that way in my old age. And it's a case of like, well, I'd rather just sit down and enjoy everybody else doing the speaking.
Yeah. I know what you mean. If you're anything like me, I forget names and things and places and dates, and I think, oh my God, and it's on the tip of your tongue, and it just won't come sometimes, you know. It's probably just nerves.
Yeah, it is. I mean, once I get up there, I'm alright. That's a funny story, actually, because when we were in Glasgow doing the talk, we'd been allotted like 30 minutes each. I didn't know what to do the talk on the South Shields Poltergeist. And I said I'd go up first, and then after 30 minutes, Mike would come on and do his 30 minutes, and we'd both decided, like, I was going to do the intro and how the case came about, and etc. And then Mike was going to come on and talk about other aspects of the case, like some of the stuff he experienced when I wasn't there, because there was a lot of time he got called out, and I was in bed through the night, sort of thing. Because I lived on the other side of the water to where the house was, and Mike lived closer, it was Mike that got called out of bed quite a lot.
Right.
which was good, but I missed out on a fair bit of stuff because of it. But anyway, I started doing this talk, and I kind of got carried away, and whilst I was up there, I was thinking to myself, well, I'm actually quite enjoying this. And I got into this talk. And later on in the talk, I'd completely forgot, the track of time. And I just seen this waving out the corner of my eye, and I looked towards Mike, and he's pointing at his wrist, and he's gone, and he had this look of anger on his face, and he said, "Oi, get up this!" And I realised that actually went 20 minutes over my allotted time. So I ended up speaking for 50 minutes, and Mike unfortunately had the last 10 minutes.
Oh dear!
And I couldn't apologise enough. I was like, "Mike, I am so sorry. I was actually enjoying myself so much I forgot all."
Yeah, I guess you can forget about the time. So it could have been worse. It could have been a big hook coming off from behind the stage or something.
Or it could have been worse. It could have got to like 59 minutes with it before I realised.
Yeah.
And I would have took up the full time to do the talk, and Mike would have been good at. I think he managed to squeeze in an extra 5 or 10 minutes, I thought.
Yeah.
And when there was questions and answers, I just said, "Well, look, Mike, go on, you can do this bit just to make up," and I felt awful. But, he was all right.
Did he manage to get most of his talk done?
He managed to get a fair bit in, and I think somebody put it in. Right, we're going to have to wind it up now. And I was like, goodness me. But he was all right afterwards. I went, "Mate, I'm really, really sorry." But, so much for not wanting to speak.
I know, yeah.
So once I got into the swing of things, you kind of shut us up.
Oh, well, you mentioned Richard Felix earlier. I keep wanting to go to Derby to actually, to the Derby Jowl, or Gowl, or whatever you want to pronounce it.
Oh yeah, Gowl. Derby Jail, yeah.
Yeah. I suppose it's the old way of spelling it, isn't it? It's Gaol.
Gowl.
Gowl. Yeah. I always thought it was a gowl, but it's actually jowl, isn't it? It's just spelt differently.
Yeah,
but, Have you been up there at all?
I haven't. Not down. Oh, sorry to lie. I have. I've been down to Derby, and I've had a bit of an explore. But I didn't go in the jail. I went to the jail, but I didn't go inside. I think it was closed when I was there, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I didn't spend too much time in Derby. But I managed to get to a few places. There's a couple of pubs and a couple of places I wanted to visit when I was there. But I've got friends who I used to do some of the early paranormal investigations I used to go with. There was a girl called Suzanne. She went down and spent a night there a couple of times. She said it was a good place. But she was a medium, or an alleged medium, shall I say. Sorry, Suzanne, if you're listening. Yes, she was a medium, or she was psychic, and she went down and she could pick more stuff up than what other people could. A lot of time, people who aren't psychic can sit there all night and not experience a thing. And the psychics, well, I've got somebody standing next to me here, and I've just seen something down there, picked up on a psychic level. I remember many times myself sitting in these situations thinking, I wish I was psychic, because like I just want to see something, I want to experience something.
Well, I was actually going to just ask you there, have you got any powers, well, I don't like to call them powers, capabilities, I suppose is the right word.
I used to think, once I got into the swing of things, I thought for a short period of time, I think I believed myself that I was psychic. I did I was intrigued by it, and I did a little bit of development, shall we say, and I was learning how to meditate and try to open up and stuff like that. And I believe I had a couple of experiences, but I'm not 100% certain whether it was just me doing it, putting it into my own head, or if I was genuinely sensing or picking stuff up. So there was one time where the Washington Arts Centre in the northeast of England, it's more like towards Wearside, in the Wearside area, not far from Washington Village. We did an investigation there one night many years ago, and we were sitting doing this seance on a table, or I had my hands on the table, and I started feeling really, really funny. My head started spinning, and I had to steady myself on the table in case I was going to fall off my chair, and I felt really groggy and ill. And then all of a sudden, my neck started hurting, and I got this horrendous pain in the back of my neck going up to the back of my head, and tremendous pains in the base of my back as well, and I was just absolutely ill with it. So I had to leave. I was really, really dizzy. It was you come in from a night out, and you lie down on the pillow and you've had one too many to drink, and the room's just going round and round and round.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like. So I was taken out the area, and when I felt okay again, about 10-15 minutes later, the curator come up to us and she said, "Are you all right?" etc., etc. And I just said, "Well, I've just got something I need to tell you." I says, there was a lady in there and she was hung, and this is, I got these impressions from goodness knows where. And I said, there's a lady in there, she was hung. I think I was sitting underneath the rafter where she killed herself. And I genuinely believed that I was picking up at that time her last sort of feelings as she was like crossing over, if you know what I mean. As crazy as that sound. But I still question it to myself to this day. And because I was talking about the pains in my neck and the aches that I was having down my back. And I was thinking, surely that's got to be what people feel like when they're slowly being hung. Rather than, like they're through the trapdoor, rather, when they just kick a stool away type thing. And that's when it takes like 15-20 minutes to die. I think that's one sort of incident where I really thought I'd picked something up, because the lady proprietor who was in charge of the venue turned around and said, "Oh yes, that's what the other mediums have said, and you're absolutely correct. That was the beam she killed herself on, and there was a lady who hung herself in here." And I was like, "Well, can I just stop you there?" I went, "I'm not a medium. I've never professed to be a medium. I've delved into it, but I've never thought I was a psychic as such, i.e. like Doris Stokes or Derek Acora or people like that, who walk around saying they pick things up. I've never claimed to be like that. But I had one experience like that, which I wrote it up in a book called, oh dear me, what was it called? I can't remember the name of the book that it's in. It's in one of my books. Anyway, it could be Paranormal Northeast. Yes, I think it's in
Paranormal Northeast, right.
Paranormal Northeast. I wrote it up in that. And I thought it was quite...
That's the problem when you write so many books, isn't it? You've got to try and keep up with them all.
It is. I've read so much stuff over the years. I've forgotten half the stuff which I've written up about. Every now and again, I do like to open up my books and just have a flick through. If anything, to like reminisce as well from the early days of me ghost hunting. And I think, oh yes, I forgot about that. And, oh, that was a good night. And it's great to open up, read, put back on the shelf. It's like a testament to like.
Well, absolutely, especially as you experienced it as well. But it certainly does sound like you did experience that. That hanging by the sound of it.
It was quite harrowing, actually. I was quite frightened because my head was just spinning round and round, and I was like, whoa, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not psychic, honestly, I'm not psychic, but I just had to tell these people. I went, oh, there was somebody hung in it. Yeah. And that's one, if not the only time where I've had a real mad experience like that. There might be others, but I can't quite remember them. If anyone's reading me books and they'll, I know you see he's had another psychic experience here. I dare say I might have had a few over the years. But in the early books as well, I always used to say everybody's got it within them anyway.
Yeah, well, I was going to say that. I'm sure we've all got a certain amount of something in us, psychic ability. Because it's like when we can sense something when we walk into a room, can't we? You can sense an atmosphere, or
well, that's it. Yes,
which is exactly the kind of thing that it is.
Yeah, like cutting the atmosphere with a knife.
Yeah, or you can pick up on someone's feelings, can't you? Without them looking miserable or whatever, but you can actually, can pick up if somebody's angry or really happy or whatever.
Yeah. Well, this is quite funny actually. There's times when I was with my ex-girlfriend, I'd put the key in the door, and I'd get this overwhelming sense of dread.
Oh dear, yeah, I know that.
And I was like, what's the matter with her? What's the matter with her? And the times I walked into the house. And I could feel the atmosphere, and then she's sitting on the settee with her face like a backside, and I'm like, what? I knew this was going to happen as I was putting my key in the door and coming in. I could just sense I'm in for it for whatever reason, and it was something like I haven't put the iron away, or I've left the dish unwashed, or something trivial. I've squeezed the toothpaste in the middle, something like
all those little things
like
that wind the ladies up, don't they? But Yeah,
that's what you think. So yeah, who knows?
I mean, what about when you dream? Do you pick up anything when you? Do you ever? What about astral travelling? Have you ever tried that, or experienced it, or have memories of it?
No, if I've got to be honest, not the astral travelling bit. I have tried meditation and self-hypnosis many years ago. And I remember, like, I used to listen to Paul McKenna, and I used to get his videotapes and his self-help tapes, in, like, relieve stress and be positive and things like that. And I used to put it on and watch the waves crashing on the shore. Paul McKenna's got such a fantastic hypnotist voice. You listen to him for 5 minutes and you're like drifting off. It's brilliant what he does. And I was drifting off into some sort of hypnotic trance. And I just felt like I was falling. I was fine at first, and all of a sudden I felt like it falling as if my head was moving, and I like jumped with a start out of it, and I kind of like, ooh, I didn't like that.
Yeah.
So it wasn't astral travelling or anything like that, but I think that's the closest I've ever got to something like that.
Yeah.
But astral travelling, no. But dreams are weird. I've had a few. I've had a premonition-y type of dream. There was one time I was walking along the big wall at where I used to live. This was in my dream, and as I was walking along the wall, you see, on one side of the wall there was like a 2-foot drop. On the other side of the wall there was like a 12-foot drop, and I was balancing along the wall. We used to play on this wall and climb up it and stuff like that when we were kids. Anyway, I was walking along the wall in this dream, and I fell over, and I hit my face on the wall, and then I woke up, and I was like, sort of like, ooh, that was weird. And then later on in that afternoon, I found myself walking on the wall.
Huh.
And as I was walking on the wall, that very afternoon, I suddenly remembered about the dream that I had, and I thought, oh my goodness, I've had a dream. It seems to be coming true. I'd better get off the wall before I fall over. And just as I started thinking I'd better get off the wall, I tripped over and I smashed my face off the wall.
Oh, no.
Exactly like what I did in my dream. No, explain that. That is so weird. And I remember I rolled off the wall on the 2-foot side, luckily, onto the ground below. I mean, so if I'd rolled off the other way, I would have been falling horizontally like 12 foot, and I probably would have broke bones. But that was quite weird in relation to a dream. Funnily enough, I've never actually wrote that story up, I don't think.
That's strange. Yeah, you should write that up.
Yeah.
Make a note quickly.
But yeah, that was weird. And I did have another dream. I have to say, if we're talking about dreams, I'll mention this. I was sitting at my friend's house one night in the dream, and I was talking to someone sitting in this chair, and I was having this conversation, and the person, my friend, who lived in that house, was looking at me strange, thinking, who are you looking at? Who are you talking to? And I'm like, well, I'm talking to this individual in the chair. Can you not see this individual in the chair? So I was apparently psychic in this dream. And he was like, no, I can't see anybody. And this person in the chair saying, tell him this, tell him that, tell him, this, that, and to that, blah, blah, blah. And there was a knock at the door in the dream. So I went and opened the door, even though it was my friend's house. I went and opened the door for whatever reason. You can do things like that in your dreams, can't you? Normally it would be him that goes and opens his own. Yeah. But it was a dream, so you can do what you like, can't you? So I went to the door and opened the door, and there was this man standing there. And he had on the most awful pinstripe suit ever. And he had this, old sort of, he's not old, but he was sort of middle-aged, and he had this weird hairdo. But it was the pinstripe suit that I noticed more than anything else. And this guy introduced himself. Now, I won't say his name. It's a little bit sensitive because it turns out, well, as you'll find out, let's say he was called David. But he wasn't called David in real life. He was called something else. But he introduced himself. He went, hello. He went, I'm David. I've been on a long journey now, and I'm safe, and I'm there. And that's all you need to know, if you can just pass that on. Which was really, really strange. So I was like, yeah, okay. Because I was psychic in this dream. And then I woke up the following morning, forgot all about it, and it was a couple of days later, I remembered about the dream. Now, my girlfriend, my ex at the time, had a relative that was murdered out in the street, sadly. It was before I actually got together with her. It's quite mad, to be honest. And this was the chap, David. Only it wasn't David. He had another name, you know. And I turned round to my ex and I went, "Oh, by the way," because we were talking about dreams. I went, "Oh, I had a dream. You've just reminded us." I said, "I've had a dream." I said, "I had a dream about David, and he told us to tell you these messages, which you've got to relay." And she looked, and she was a little bit, because she's quite open-minded to this type of stuff. And she looked and she went, "What did he look like?" And I says, "Oh, well, he had this kind of hair and he had this type of face," and I tried to describe him. And I turned around again and said, "He had this god-awful suit on." And she looked at us and her eyes just filled up with water and she went, "A suit? What type of suit?" And I went, "Oh, it was a horrible pinstripe suit." And she burst out crying. And she went, "Oh my God, David used to wear that very pinstripe suit that you were talking about." She went, "That's it." And I'm saying, "Well, whoa, I had a dream about." So I described him to a T, and I described his suit that he used to wear, and she was like absolutely panicked about it, and she was like, she couldn't believe it. She was upset with emotion, but she went and told her older sister, who was married to David, and she was heading on of it. She was like, "No, don't believe in any of that. Don't believe in it. Don't believe in it." Wow. So one sister was like blown away with it. The other one, who was married to the chap, she was like, "Oh no, I don't believe. I don't believe it." I said, "Well, if there was anything in it, then I've done what he's asked us to do." And that was a weird experience as well. I've wrote that one up actually as well, but that one's never been published either.
Wow.
So who knows? Who knows? Dreams are a funny thing.
Yeah.
There is another individual who I did used to know as well, who spoke to us in a dream, which is weird. Yes, me saying I'm not psychic.
Yeah.
But I have had, honestly, these dreams where I had a conversation with this lad who was sadly killed, and he was telling us all about his injuries, and he told us what it was like on the other side. It was weird and stuff, but I've never said anything to the family of anything. I just didn't want to. I just got the feeling it was like, I'm not going to approach the family with this, because I might sound like a nutcase. But yeah, I've had some odd dreams which have got us thinking, put it that way.
Yeah. Well, I certainly think dreams, you can actually get things that, because your mind's more open, isn't it? And I sometimes wonder if you actually go into like a parallel world kind of thing, and where you're actually talking to the spirits on the other side. Because obviously we are spiritual beings. I presume you agree with me in that.
Oh yeah,
in that respect.
yeah, I think so.
We're just living in a shell, aren't we? And having this experience of me being David and you being Darren. Yeah. It's one of life's mysteries, I suppose, isn't it? It's nice to believe. It's nice to cling on to that thought that obviously when we die, something comes out of our soul and then heads off elsewhere, perhaps. Yeah. It is a nice reassuring thought, but then I also think about, well, is it just something that mankind have made up to stop we're going crazy thinking about the idea of death? So I don't know. I mean, you want to get to the truth of things, but is the truth the best? Is honesty the best policy? I don't know. So a lot of people don't like the truth. Perhaps when we do die and we find out that there's nothing after, that's a truth that's going to kick we're right in the kahoonies, isn't it? You know, but who knows? I'm open-minded to it, and I'd love to think that after we shuffle off this mortal coil, there is something better. But then again, there's lots of evidence out there that suggests this is exactly what happens. Yeah. But it's the evidence that hasn't been kind of passed in a scientific court of law, if you know what I mean. I guess it just all boils down to belief, whether you believe it. And if you do believe in that sort of thing, if you believe that you're going to go somewhere better elsewhere, I think who is science to take that away from them? They say, well, actually, nothing happens. All you're going to do is you're going to rot in a box. Yeah. What's that going to do to somebody? If there's a relative that's passed on before you, your wife, or, like, God forbid, you know, like a child or something like that, and then it's your turn to
it's your time to go soon. If you're happy in the knowledge that you're going to pass over and you think you're going to see your family again, what gives anybody the right to turn around and say, well, actually, you're not? Let them have it. Let them have that. Let them die peacefully and happily. You know?
Well, I fully agree with you.
It's a fascinating subject.
Yeah.
And I would like to think that there's definitely something.
Yeah.
But what? Who knows?
I mean, personally, I believe that we've got some sort of a life force in us. Because I mean, we communicate electrically, don't we? And you can't destroy electricity. So I kind of think that there's something going on in your body that's a living force of some sort. Where, you know, our body doesn't sort of make up what we say or how we feel or anything like that. That's my own beliefs anyway.
Well, there's definitely some sort of living life force going on because we're alive and we're living, and you know we are technically a life force. Yeah. But the big question remains: is what happens when our bodies die? Does our life force die with it, or does it move on? Fascinating, absolutely fascinating.
It is fascinating, yeah,
absolutely fascinating. But say when you talk about seeing apparitions, there's lots of different types of apparitions. You know, you've got what they call the stone tape apparition, where the same thing occurs time after time after time.
Like a recording.
Yes, she comes down the stairs and she disappears through a wall. Nothing else. But then there's other types of apparitions that have been documented where they actually interact with you. And it's like, you know, there's the old classic, oh, ma'am, I was talking to old Betty up the road the day. I saw her at the top of the street. Huh? Oh, Betty, from next door. Yeah. Well, she died 2 weeks ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so, well, I was talking to her. I must have seen a ghost, and a ghost must have had some sort of consciousness or sentience to be able to like hold a communication chat with me. I didn't really say Betty, by the way. It's just an example.
No,
you know. But you hear stories like that time and time again. So it's got to make you think: can they come back from the great beyond to call in and say hello and to right a wrong, or perhaps, or even to just let people know that, you know, there is something better waiting for them.
Yeah. Well, that's it, you see. When you described about your experiences, something happened there, didn't it? I mean, and obviously, if you were just Darren, you know, just a human being, how would you get those feelings unless there was something actually coming from the other side somehow to talk to you?
Yes, well, I've often thought about that. I've often, you know, you've heard the old saying, oh, I laid awake half the night just thinking about it. It kept us awake. And for many, many months after that, I was like that. I was like, what on earth happened? How could I have known that? Because I didn't deliberately go out my way to like cold read the place and think, oh, there's a beam up there. The likelihood is somebody might have hung themselves from it. And even if I did, and I managed to get everything right, I don't know how I did that, because, well, I didn't. I just went in and I was trying to get in contact with any alleged spirits that were there, or ghosts, and I was all excited about, oh, it's great this, and we were sitting around the fingers on the table. It wasn't like a Ouija board or a seance, it was just all sitting there relaxed, and we were just calling out to the atmosphere. And I managed to pick all this stuff up, which was really odd. And they say the curator, I ended up saying, well, yes, you got it all correct. And other mediums have said that as well. And I was like, yeah, I'm not a medium. At least I don't think I am. So,
well, that's it. I think we've all got a little bit in us, but I mean, I don't consider I don't think I've got any psychic abilities either. But then I've had a few sort of small experiences of my own, so you know, which have been quite weird, you know. But I mean, how do you feel about the use of Ouija boards and?
I think, to be honest, they're more dangerous psychologically than they are spiritually, I would say. I've done many of Ouija board, but this was like many, you know, good way ago. We dabbled with a bit. I think everybody has, to be honest. A lot of people say they haven't, but they'll have had a go.
Yeah, it's usually in their teens or whatever, isn't it?
Yeah. And we were trying a few on a couple of investigations, and 9 times out of 10 nothing happened. And it was nothing like what you see on TV where it's going all over the place.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
And I like upturned glasses and things like that. There was nothing like that. And I think I'm pretty strong-minded, I think, to be honest. And if I was like a frail-minded, scared, sort of nervous person, you should avoid them like the plague, to be honest. Especially if you believe in the power of the Ouija board, you know, if you believe that it can open portals and doors and things. I mean, it might. I don't know. I'm not poo-pooing it altogether. But personally, I just think it's more psychologically damaging than it is spiritually.
Yeah.
You could go away paranoid. This is to do with a lot of the ghost hunts as well. There's loads of people go on ghost hunts and they go appear to be scared and terrified, and you're messing with your mind when you do things like that. I think you've got to be pretty strong and pretty sensible. You've got to be able to like try, and if something kicks off, shall we say, inverted commas, or if something's paranormally active, like a door slams or somebody gets pushed, you've got to be rational about it. And you've got to, what could have happened there? Like, get me head around this. If you're on edge and you're a nervous wreck, or if you've got mental issues, which you certainly shouldn't be going on investigations if you're paranoid or if you're schizophrenic or anything like that, then it could send somebody over the edge, thinking that there's an invisible entity right before you in the darkness, but you can't see it. It could drive you potty, couldn't it?
Well, as I understand it, you're supposed to open and close them properly anyway, with protection and everything. Yes,
we've tried all that back in the day as well. Yeah, we used to sit and have these seances, and you know, the white light coming up over your shoulder and over your head, and we tried it. It's a funny situation, mind you. I've come out of every investigation I've ever did relatively unscathed. So perhaps it did work, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I haven't come out a gibbering wreck in a straitjacket. But then again, it could be the psychological thing. If you're thinking you're covered and you genuinely believe that this white light's protecting you.
Yeah, that's right.
You may be psychologically prepared for what might come.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating topic, isn't it?
It is. I mean, I have to say, I did it quite a lot when I was a teenager, like there was a group of us doing it. And, I was to say, I don't think it ever affected me that much. Not that I know of, anyway. But
no,
you know, but
not me too.
There was one little incident which was quite it fascinated me, because there was three of us. There was four of us. There was me and my girlfriend and her friend and her boyfriend. Now, he didn't believe in anything of that type, and we were saying to him, "Well, I'll tell you what, go and sit in the corner and write something on a piece of paper, and we'll ask the glass, as it was, if it can spell out what you've written." You know, and he said, "Okay then," and he sat over in the corner, and he said, with his look on his face, "Oh, you're never going to get this," you know. And anyway, we started asking the glass, so what was Vince, I think his name was, what has Vince just written on that piece of paper? It started spelling out G-U-N, gun. And he sat there and he went as white as a sheet. Because what he did, he hadn't actually written out gun, he'd actually turned the piece of paper around and he'd drawn a picture of a gun.
Oh wow! Oh goodness me!
Which was good. It sent the shiver right down our spot. I mean, we all looked at each other thinking, "Wow, yeah, that was quite amazing," you know.
Yeah, it's fascinating because something occurred there. It could have been spirit communicating through the glass or the planchette or whatever it was he used. If it wasn't that, then what alternative is there? The fact is that one of the sitters who was concentrating on trying to get the answer tapped into his mind and actually picked it up telepathically, or actually read
that's
his
the
mind.
Possibility. Perhaps him and his girlfriend, or it became his wife actually, maybe some sort of communication went on there. You never know. Yeah.
Yeah, but whatever which one it was, either way, it's absolutely fascinating psychic phenomena.
Yeah, something invisible happened. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I see a lot of ghost stories when people are talking about how psychics pick things up, and one of the rational explanations now as to how the psychic is picking things up is because they're reading somebody's mind who actually knows the information. And I'm thinking, well, hang on. So you're slating the psychic here for not being psychic and cheating.
Yeah.
But he's getting his information by reading that person's
mind read instead, yeah.
Yeah, he's doing a reading, but what's he reading? He's reading somebody's mind. And I've heard this before. That's how he's managed to do it. He can't be communicating with spirits. He's obviously tapping his mind And I'm thinking, well, isn't that incredible phenomena in itself?
Yeah.
Rather than like belittling the psychic for it, shouldn't you be saying, well, hang on, there's a little bit of potential here. We want to study you. You seem to be reading this chap's mind.
Yeah.
And if you're not reading his mind, where are you getting the information from?
And then again, that takes me back to what I said originally. Like, if that communication is going on, it's like an electronic communication. So, why would that not carry on after you die? You know, it's one
of life's little mysteries, isn't it?
It is. It's a fascinating subject. But I guess we'll talk a bit more about your books. I mean, you've got a new book coming out soon. It's kind of an updated version of your Contagion book, isn't it?
It is. Yes.
See, I've been studying.
Yeah. Or you've been getting bombarded with me Facebook texts or my Facebook posts.
Yeah.
Here's my book again. Here's a reminder. It's coming out soon. But I keep bunging the pictures on. I mean, Facebook's the only sort of advertising that I actively go out and do, if you know what I mean. I've got quite a few friends, and even if nobody puts the likes and comments, at least I know it's out there and it will be getting
Well, you will
seen.
get followers on Amazon as well, won't you? You know, with people that follow what books you've got coming out.
I think so. Yes. I'm not up on working out who's following, if anything. I mean, I'd be thank you to anybody who is, I must admit. But yeah, I try to get the word out there, and I do these podcasts and things like that, you know, and try and plug the book wherever I can. I feel they're interesting stories, and I've been getting a bit of praise from a few psychical researchers who I deem to be the real clever people, and I'm pinching myself at times thinking, wow, are these people actually saying these things about something that I've done? And so I tend to post their praise rather than me say, well, this book's done this and it's done that, and I'm the first to suggest this and to that. These are other people's words. Like say, for example, Steve Parsons from Parascience, and he's an SPR council member. He had said, I basically need a pat on the back for yet again, I've made another great contribution. That's going, his sentence is going in the front of the book sort of thing. And Steve Parsons is a bit of a, should I say hero? He's classed as the modern day Harry Price these days.
Right.
And Britain's #1 ghost hunter. I've heard, obviously he'll not admit that, and he'll not say, well, yes it is. He'll obviously play it down, but wow, I mean, what an accolade that is. And for him to turn around and say something really positive and nice about something that I've done, it's like, wow, it's unbelievable. And then there's Alan Murray from the Society for Psychical Research. He was the head of the Spontaneous Cases Committee, which Maurice Grosse held until his sad death in 2006. He was the head of the Spontaneous Cases Committee, and Alan Murray did the sort of review on the South Shields Poltergeist case, and he wrote some journal pieces about it and book reviews and things like that, you know, and he put his name to the books as well. So I'm quite happy that little old me has managed to put together something like this, obviously with Mike. The new Poltergeist Parallels and Contagion book, which is the updated Contagion, was a joint effort by both myself and Mike Halliwell. But Mike stepped back and he found this new religion, and he was getting a little bit of ill health as well. So he decided to just take a back seat. And he was like, Darren, you can do what you like with the books. He said, I'm taking my name off the books, and you can just wish you good luck. And thanks for the great ride we've been on together. You know, it's been a blast. We've been, you know, he said, but good luck with it. And I was like, are you sure you want to do this? And he was like, yeah. So we're still best of mates. But it's just the South Shields Poltergeist book. I decided to put the new chapter in, or an old chapter that should have went in the first place, which never went in. I put that in, retweaked it, and added a new preface and a little bit of extra stuff, and it was re-released, but Mike's name had came off. It was just Darren W. Ritson. But there was like an author's note explaining why Mike's name was like not on the book anymore. And likewise with Poltergeist Parallels and Contagion. Contagion in the shadow of the South Shields Poltergeist. I said to Mike, look, I'm going to update this book. I'm going to jiggle it around and just completely refresh it, and I might break it into 2 parts. And I says, do you mind? He went, Darren, he went, do what you like. He went, it's yours. I'm out the picture now. So I did, and that's basically ready to come out in, I think it's about 5 weeks now.
Yeah, October the 5th I've got written down here, is that right?
Sorry?
October the 5th I've got written down here.
October the 5th, yes, that's the date provisionally given to me by the publisher. Which was October
so that's right, that's just a few weeks' time. I mean, scarily, that's just a few weeks' time, isn't it?
Yeah, it's coming up to a year since the third edition of the South Shields Poltergeist came out, because that came out October 2020. And then a year later, I've managed to update the Contagion book. See, the Contagion book was that came out originally in 2014. And it was only 250 copies made. No,
really? Just as few as that?
There was only 250. That was the first print run. 250 copies. And there was going to be more, but due to unforeseen circumstances, the publisher couldn't sort of promote and sell like he wanted to. Something personal had occurred, which obviously I can't go into, you know, but
yeah.
He told us what had happened, and I was like, listen, go and look after your family. Something had occurred in the family, and I was like, and he says, look, I feel really bad. I'm going to drive up to Newcastle and give you all the books that I've got left. And he gave us boxes of books. So it was saying, I always thought there was about 400 or 500 in the first print run, but there was only 250. He confirmed the other day, which is great, I suppose, because it means there's not that many people seen the book. Those that have seen it actually like it. There's a couple of good reviews out there, again from the academic, scientific type people, if you know what I mean. You know, like yours and you know these people. They put a few of them have looked at it and have thought, that's interesting. There's a guy in America as well called Randy Liebeck. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. He was quite forthcoming in helping us update the book. Actually, he was sending us information about cases where there was like a little bit of contagion involved, where the investigators took stuff away with them. So he gets an honourable mention in the book, and he's in the acknowledgements as well. He's a psychical researcher in the States, and he's quite well known. And he said it was a really good book. He's one of the ones that have managed to get a hold of a copy and read it. And I'm like thinking to myself, well, you know, I really need to get this book out again. Apparently there's some good ideas in it and some good theories, which could potentially not set the psychical research world alight as such, but there's a lot of thought-provoking ideas and theories and things which allegedly other people have failed to mention. And one guy says, there's questions in here that others have deliberately not mentioned or that have skirted around. This guy asks these certain questions, and these are the questions that should be asked, and this is a good book, good step forward potentially in just, you know, understanding the nature of the poltergeist. And I'm like, wow, did I partake in this? You know, and I'm thinking, well, all we did was investigate a few cases post South Shields. Striking parallels became apparent. Contagion was experienced. We experienced contagion events at South Shields when we actually took stuff away with us, which was quite strange. And when I mean took stuff away with us, it kind of infected Mike and I. We went away from what we've classed as the primary infestation site, or ground zero. You know, the main house where the infestation's taking place. Anybody who goes into that sort of domain, into that area, essentially they're putting themselves at risk. They're not just going to go and investigate a poltergeist and have a great time and then go home. Potentially, you could take it away with you.
Like an attachment, they call it, don't they?
Yeah, like a spiritual attachment or whatever, but on like a viral, you know, like you catch something, you could actually catch a bit of the poltergeist, and that occurred. And the only saving grace really is those that get infected with the poltergeist don't get it as intense or as strongly as what they do with ground zero, but after a while it kind of peters out, as if it's like going back to, you know what I mean? And we had a couple of experiences where we were sitting in Mike's study, and we were talking about, this was during the actual South Shields Poltergeist case, and we were actually talking about, well, what could be on the house? What could be on the site of the house? Well, we've got to have a look into that, etc. And this huge book, huge, gigantic, hardback, weighty tome, which was sitting firmly on the shelf, threw itself off the shelf as we walked past, because we were going to go into the kitchen for a cup of tea. And as we walked past, as we were talking about what's on the site, this book came flying off the shelf. And the book happened to be, spookily enough, Hodgson's Borough of South Tyneside, like a complete history. It was as if to say, ta-da, your answer might be in there, you know. But as we walked past this book, it come flying off the shelf. And I turned around to Meg and I went, do you think we've brought something back with her, you know? Just kind of, and it was only after the case we started thinking about all these things, and we're thinking, do you know what? We've actually experienced the contagion. It's actually come away with us as we've been, and we got started thinking about that. And back in the 1990s, 1996, there was a book out by John and Anne Spencer, called The Poltergeist Phenomenon. And I remember reading it not as a youngster, I was in my like early 20s or things like that. And I always remember they made mention of the poltergeist, you know, what we do know is it can latch onto you, and if you get too close, etc., etc. Yeah. And I've actually quoted them in the front of this new book. I've put a list of quotes in from other investigators that have noticed it, and they've made mention of it, but then it sort of fell by the wayside.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
That book sounds familiar. I was just looking at my bookshelf now. I'm not sure if I've got it on my shelf or not. But I know I've heard of the book.
John and Anne Spencer. Yeah, it's got like a black and green cover. Yeah. There's like a hard version and a paperback version.
Yeah, I've got another one I can see, Phenomenon, with John Spencer and Hilary Evans on it, but I'm not sure about the other one. Anyway, yeah, sorry, I digress. But interesting story.
If you haven't got it, fine. But that book, I remember thinking many years ago, ooh, it's quite contagious. So there is investigators out there that have made mention of it, and they've actually thought, hang on, whoa. Oh, you can actually take a bit of this away with you if you're not careful. I'll give you another example. Dr. Barry Taff, he's an American chap.
Oh, yeah, no.
I've been in touch with him because he wrote, he was the guy who investigated the entity, the original entity case in, I think it was Culver City in 1974 in LA.
Yeah.
And obviously they based the movie, The Entity, on that account. And he had another case which was called the San Pedro Poltergeist, where they investigated this house and they went to do that, you know, they were doing that investigating. And then this guy, Barry Conrad, he went to his flat, home, and it was just going absolutely mad in his house. His ovens and his you know, the gas hobs were lighting, flaring up. Wow. And there was windows being smashed and things being thrown around the house, and this pair of scissors would like fly around his head and it would cut his pillow open. And there's a documentary on YouTube out there. I can't remember its exact address, you know, the web address, but if you Googled it, you'd find it, and it's on about 90 minutes long, and it's all about the San Pedro case. And there's some fantastic examples of contagion. And Barry Taff, in his book, Aliens Above, Ghosts Below, he actually writes quite in depth about what he calls a psychovirus, like a psychic virus thing. It's as if, like, the poltergeist was contagious. And I said to Barry, I went, your psychovirus is essentially what we call contagion. And I said, can I have a copy of this chapter, because can I write it up? And he went, yeah, by all means. He said, he sent us the chapter over, and eventually I bought the book. And it's a fantastic book. But then it happened then in the Enfield case, the Enfield poltergeist. Maurice Gross had experienced stuff away from the primary infestation site, or ground zero, like it says we'll call it. 42 Long Street, it's South Shields. It's 284 Green Street. It's where the main poltergeist occurs. Now, Morris went away, and a wedding ring, or some sort of engagement ring or wedding ring, completely disappeared out of its pot and suddenly reappeared the day he was about to send off his insurance form for it. And he looked in the pot and he looked all over. He turned the house upside down. There it was, bold as brass, even though it was gold. Bold as gold, shall we say, sitting in the pot. And when I was talking to Guy Playfair about this, and we were talking about any contagion at Enfield, he mentioned that. He says that was an interesting sort of, that happened in Morris's house. And there was other things that occurred at Enfield as well, where people took the poltergeist away from the house, and they experienced it in their own houses. And it's absolutely fascinating. I'm not going to give too much away about some of the experiences. Having said that, they're all outlined in This House is Haunted, which was Guy Playfair's book on the case. When I was reading it again, I was picking up little bits, and I'm thinking, that's Contagion. That's Contagion. Now, the important thing about Contagion is, Janet, let's use the Enfield poltergeist here. Janet was the focus for the Enfield poltergeist. Now, if Janet went down the road to her uncle's house, which she did, and there was stuff experienced there, that's not technically, in my eyes, Contagion, because Janet was the focus, so Janet just took it with her. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Janet's the actual focus. It's within her, if indeed the poltergeist is working through the focus. We're not going to what a focus is and stuff like that. Most people know what a poltergeist focus is. If she went from house A to house B, and then stuff happened in house B, she's the focus.
Yeah, sure.
She's taking it with her. That's not Contagion, because it's with her anyway. She goes home, the poltergeist goes home with her. If she goes down to the shops and the clothes start flying off the shelves and, the tills start opening, the poltergeist hasn't followed her to the shop. It's with her. She's took it with her. Do you get me drift?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, if Janet's at the house at Enfield, Guy, or Morris, has been to the house at Enfield, and then he tootles off to his home, and it was Muswell Hill. And then he starts experiencing stuff at his house, and Janet's still here at Green Street. Then Morris, to a certain extent, has been infected.
Yeah. And
he's took a little bit of the phenomena away with him, and that's what happened. And there's other cases dotted about in the literature where people have noticed it, they've kind of sidelined it, they thought, oh, well, this is interesting, that's happened, that happened. Anyway, back at ground zero, this is what's going on. And it's as if those that have noticed it have kind of they've just noticed it in passing, and they've made a note of it, and they say, well, that's interesting, but then that's all it is. And then nobody seems to have actually delved into it and looked at other cases and sort of studied what's going on, and then come to a hypothesis as to A, what's actually going on, and B, what's responsible for it, and why does Contagion take place. And in the Poltergeist Parallels and Contagion book, the original Contagion book, Mike and I have come up with this theory as to why Contagion might occur. But you'll have to buy the book if you want.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
if you want to find out what theories and what ideas. And I think this is why a few people are kind of getting excited about what we've said, because people are thinking, oh my goodness, never thought about that before.
Yeah, well, I was about to say, it's not really crossed my mind before. I mean, we've all heard about people getting attachments and things, but of course, this is kind of another way forward with it, isn't it? It's another name for it, what you're saying, a contagion of some sort.
Yeah, poltergeists are contagious, there's no two ways about it, and I think if anybody who reads the book, I think it's going to be 50-50. A lot of people are going to read it and think, well, that's interesting. But a lot of people are just going to laugh out loud and just say, I think it's a complete rubbish. But let me promise you, I promise you, this is not rubbish. What happened to us happened to us. And there's other cases, and I'm thinking, did this really happen to us? Right? I'm going to find other cases. Did this happen in other cases? And I'm thinking, well, it's happened in other cases. It's happened here, it's happened there. There's a case in Australia back in the 1940s or 50s, Mayanup in Australia. There's a brilliant book out called Australian Poltergeists by Paul Cropper and Tony Healy, and that's a fantastic book, and they go into one of their cases, Mayanup, I think it's 1956, in New South Wales, I think it is, of the Northern Territories, one of the two, and I was reading that book on the case, and some fantastic instances happening there, where they were talking about two poltergeists going on at the same time. And one was at one, it's not written up in my terminology, they've written it up the way they've read it and written it up, which was great, but I'm reading this and I'm thinking, hang on, they've got one family living at this house, and there's another family living at that house. In house B, there's like a relative of someone in who's house A, who's been to house A and now's in house B, and now the activity's in house B, and the activity's in house A at the same time. And I'm thinking, well, clearly, the woman who's been infected this time, she's been to house A, and she's took it to house B. But the focus remained at house A, if you know what I mean. It can be quite sort of confused, but it was another fascinating case where I'm thinking this is a clear case of contagion. This girl who was looking after somebody in house A ended up going home, and then what Paul and Tony have said is there was two poltergeists kicking off at the same time, and I'm thinking, well, no, maybe it's not. Maybe it's just the one poltergeist from house A, which has been infected somebody and has went into house B, where the activity then continued. And I think that's a classic case of contagion again. And I've wrote up there's a whole new chapter. I think it consists of about 20,000 words, which I've wrote up, and it's all about other cases, historic cases. Battersea Poltergeist in 1950, can't remember the date now, in the 1950s, on Wycliffe Road. That's a famous case about the Dauphin of France. I can't remember his name now. This guy claimed to be like, or the poltergeist claimed to be like the spirit of the son of somebody famous, and he was the heir to the throne in France, and he escaped, and he claimed to be, but a lot of people were saying it was a poltergeist, and he was leaving messages here, there and everywhere, and there was a little bit of contagion occurred there, because some worker had visited the house, and when they were on the bus going home, they were hearing thumps and bangs all around them, and something happened in somebody else's house, and I'm thinking, more contagion, I need to write this up. And I'm trying to demonstrate in this new chapter that it's not just the South Shields poltergeist where people experienced stuff taken away. If I was to just say, yes, it was just us, and people might say, oh, well, yeah, you're overthinking things, you're exaggerating, it didn't really happen, it can't happen, but I'm actually trying to prove a point here to say, look, it has happened in other cases, and here they are. Go off and research them and have a look yourself. But it also happened at ours. The first version of the South Shields poltergeist, it mentions that, the book flying off the shelf, and there's other instances which we'll go into in Poltergeist Parallels and Contagion. There's other instances where people who came to the house at Lock Street, 42 Lock Street in South Shields, they experienced stuff, they took stuff away and experienced stuff for themselves. There's a fascinating thing about when one guy is actually driving past the house at 2 o'clock in the morning and his phone rings, and he doesn't even know there's a case going on, but because this guy was linked to Mike, and Mike was linked to 42 Lock Street, there was a weird type of connection there. And it's as if it can just reach out and branch out and start to connect in different levels. And we're going through the book, and we've like sort of labelled different types of contagion, different levels of it, what type it is. And so we're trying to be very specific here in relation to what the contagion is. Because I've been speaking to, I've spoken to other people, and when I was asking, I said, hey, have I had any events of contagion, or do you know of any? And they'd say, oh yes, well, the ghost here followed such and such to the shop. And I'm saying, well, was this person the focus? Yes. Well, that's not contagion, because the poltergeist is with this person. What we're looking for is when associated to that household, visits it, and then goes away and experiences stuff for themselves away from ground zero. It's a fascinating topic. It really is.
I can't wait to actually get a copy of the book. I'll have to get you to send me a signed copy. I'll pay for it, of course. But yeah,
of course. Yeah, that'll be. I'll be happy to do that. Yeah, and you can put that on your shelf and hopefully enjoy it. And I think the idea is what we want to do is I keep saying we. I mean, I've just updated the book. My name's going on the front of the book, but it's a joint effort between me and Mike Holloway. So, although my name's on the front of this book, we wrote it.
Yeah.
Right? And I've made that perfectly clear at the front of the book. I've said, I'm not taking Mike's name out of this, and I'm not removing his name, even though he asked us to. I said, no, Mike, honestly, I refuse, because this is a contribution that both me and you did, and I'm not going to take your name away from that. It's credit where credit's due. We'll both come up with this.
Yeah.
So, yes, I'll take it forward, and I'll try and promote it, and whatever. You can take your back seat and sit back and relax and enjoy your retirement. But I must insist on leaving your name in your valuable contribution in the book. And you say, oh, that's fair enough. Fair enough, Dan. Well, thank you very much for that. That's what it was like.
It must still be worth people buying the original copy of it anyway, isn't it? If it's available.
Well, that's the thing. It's not really. The only copies that are available are boxed up, and they're in my dad's house.
Ah, I see.
Because Paul brought us them all up, you see.
Yeah.
The publisher who brought us them all up, the lad who I know, he brought them all up for us because he couldn't.
Oh, so you've got the remainder still. I was going to say to you, because there were so few copies printed, they must be quite collector's items. Perhaps you could make yourself a little fortune out of there. So them as collector's items.
Well, funnily enough, I am distributing them and I'm getting rid of them, but I'm actually giving them away. I'm not selling it.
Ah. Well.
As hard as that may sound to believe, I'm sending one to Steve Parsons. I've sent one to Cindy Little in the States. She's a psychical researcher who writes with James Horan, who's a prolific journal paper publisher writer. Yeah. Oddly enough, I'm actually in cahoots with James Horan and Cindy Little at the minute, in while we're putting a paper together for the SPR journal in relation to some of the data that was accumulated at South Shield. Yeah. But I've sent a copy to Cindy Little, and there's a couple of copies I've got enveloped and ready to go out, and they're double signed. And my goal is, I just want to give them to like bona fide researchers who's going to put them on the shelf and maybe treasure them, or read from them, and maybe people who might try and take it forward.
Yeah, sure.
Does that make sense? I mean, I could hang on to them. I could have kept them and got them all double signed. I've only got about 5 or 6 double signed copies. Right. Obviously, I've signed it, and I've been allowed to see my signed a few. But it's a dead way of thinking. But those signed copies, because there was only 250 made, and there's probably only 20 double signed copies out there in existence. Hopefully, they might become collector's items. And who'd have thought it? I mean, I'm here pinching myself again. Me, co-authoring a book that's become a collector's item. I never thought that would happen. It might not yet, but you never know. But there's some good ideas and theories in that which I've elaborated on in the update. But I'm thinking, yeah, I'm a bit of a collector of books, and if I had a chance to get a copy of that double signed, I've got a triple signed book actually. It's called The Bawley Rectory Companion.
Ah, right, yeah, that sounds in.
Yeah. It's a big hardback book, and Paul Adams is a friend of mine, and Eddie Brazil, he's a friend of mine as well, and Peter Underwood, the late Peter Underwood. Yeah. Wasn't that so much a friend of mine, but he was like a correspondent.
Yeah.
I used to write to him a lot, and he used to write back to me, and I met him in London, and went to see him do one of his talks, and I've got a lovely picture taken with him. And he did invite me down to the Savage Club, which was the gentleman's club that he used to attend. He was like the honorary sort of librarian there. And he invited me down, and I couldn't make it, which I was gutted about. I wanted to go down and, have an afternoon discussing ghosts with, the legend that is Peter Underwood. But I couldn't make it. But I did eventually get to meet him anyway. And anyway, Paul Adams, when this book came out, there's me Geordie coming through there.
I thought you turned Scottish for a moment.
When the book came out, he took a few down to London and got them signed. And on that day, there was only 5 books in his bag, because if you've seen the Bawley Rectory Companion, it's a big, fat, huge hardback. Yeah. And he could only manage 5 because they were heavy. Right. That was the one time the 3 of them were together and they signed the books. So there was only 5 ever done. Wow. And he all sent one to me. So I don't know who's got the other 4. There might be in Paul's family, there might be in Eddie's family, there might be one in Peter's family. And I'm not sure where the other one might be, but I think there's only 5 Never been seen.
Wow. I'll have to do a little bit of research into that now.
Yeah, the Bowley Rectory Companion, yeah. Paul's on Facebook. You want to get a hold of him, and if you haven't had him on the show...
No, I haven't. Yeah, it's a good idea.
Get him on. He wrote a fantastic book called Shadows in the Nave, and that was with Eddie Brazil as well, and Peter Underwood. And I got this book, and I'm thinking, wow. I haven't read Peter Underwood ever since I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, goodness me, I'm actually, in his later books, towards the end of his life, the last few books he did, I'm actually in them. And I'm thinking, wow, I'm in one of Peter Underwood's books. That's like so mad as well.
I'm sure,
in the
I've got a couple on the shelf here somewhere.
Yeah, he was prolific, more prolific than...
Hello? Oh, sorry, I lost you for a second there.
He's done lots of great work.
Yeah.
But a lot of my books are pamphlets compared to Peter Underwood's. But yeah, happy days.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, I'll certainly put a link to your new book on the Paranormal Dimensions page anyway, Darren. It's, and obviously links to all your other books as well, because you've got quite a prolific collection, as I've said. It's like like travel guides for ghosts, aren't it?
Well, yeah, regional guides. If anyone ever came to the northeast of England and they wanted to hunt out the ghosts of Newcastle, they do no wrong to get a copy of Haunted Newcastle. And it's like a guide. You could go around all these different places. Like, right, here's Newcastle Keep. Like, read about what happened here. Oh, the ghost of such and such was seen on the stairs and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Oh, there's on to the next place. We'll go to the Sallyport Tower. Or we'll go to the Cooperage Pub. Etc., etc. And you can do that in Durham. You can do it because there was a haunted Durham, there's a haunted Newcastle, there's a haunted Carlisle, there's a haunted Berwick, and then there's a couple of like counties I've done them in. Like there's a haunted Tyne and Wear, and there's a Northumberland one as well. It's
amazing actually when you start thinking about all the different northern towns there are, and then when you start going to Scotland as well, it's fascinating how many there are.
Oh, there is. There's loads of them. Yeah, I think the publishers have they struggled when everybody started getting into this sort of thing, because every town, every village, every city, they've got their ghost tales, haven't they?
Especially the old pubs.
Oh, yes. Well, that's another one of my books, actually, as well. Both Mike and I, we did a book called Ghost Havens of the Northeast, and that's just like a gazetteer of haunted...
Yeah, I haven't actually got... I'm going to get that one. I haven't got that one, but I'm going to get that, because they're quite fascinating, some of these old pubs.
Oh, I love an oldie worldy pub with charm and character. Yeah. The one that speaks to you when you walk into it, as if to say, "Oi, I've got a ghost in here, come and find." You know what I mean? When you've got like the roaring fire and the oak beams and the creaky stairs, and to top it off, a fine pint of ale. You can't go wrong there, can you? And then you say, when you perched over the bar with a pint, and you say, "Excuse me, Mr. Landlord, could you tell us about your ghosts? Have you got any ghosts?"
There's a nice roaring fire in the corner. Yeah.
Oh, goodness me. I love it. Love it. And when we were researching that book, we visited a lot of pubs, which equated to a lot of free pints and a lot of free meals. It's a dirty job, but somebody's got to do it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I mean, all the pubs wanted to put them in the book, so I think they would bend over backwards to be nice. Would you like your dinner? Is it, what's the special today? Oh, we've got Yorkshire pudding, we've got... Oh, but thanks very much, that's very kind of you. Yes, please. And would you like a couple of pints to go with that? And we're like, yeah. Yes, please. And could you sit down and tell about your ghosts? But then they'd always tell with the ghost stories, and then we'd go away and research it and look at it anyway, and see if we could find anyone else that would tell with the same story. Because I'd hate to think, like, they were, filling our bellies full of food and beer, and feeding with a crock of rubbish.
Yeah, well, I'm sure there are some stories that go around that aren't true, but,
Yeah, obviously there might be one or two that have slipped through the net, but the majority of the stuff we found out turned out to be bona fide ghosts. And a lot of the pubs that were researched and looked into anyway had been famously haunted in our region for years anyway, like the Jolly Sailor in Whitburn, and you've got the Morsden Grotto Cave Bar in South Shields, pubs like that, the Cooperage in Newcastle upon Tyne, the Blackie Boy, and there's another great one down this cobbled back alley called the Old George. All these pubs, they've been renownedly haunted for years. So these took priority. These went straight in the book,
Yeah.
And we know the ghost stories that were attached to these buildings, and we just wrote them up and put them in. We've got some great pictures. It's a really I'm proud of that book, to be honest. Because I love pubs. I've got to be honest.
Well, don't we all?
Yes.
It makes me feel like getting in my car and going for a road trip up there, actually, around the northern perimeters.
Get in all the pubs in there.
As I say, if ever you're down this way, please give me a call. We'll see if we can find any haunted pubs down this way.
Oh, that sounds like your plan. Go on a haunted pub crawl.
I'm sure there must be a few around Essex, because it's quite a witchy area, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I was in Essex in 2003.
Were you? Oh, it was quite a while. Oh, you must be due another trip then.
I must be. Having said that, it was Essex. We went to Colchester Castle.
Ah, right,
and we stayed in, where did we stay? Oh, what's the name of the place? There's a pub called where Harry Price used to stay.
I wouldn't know. To be honest, I don't know much about Colchester, to be honest.
It's not. No, it's not in Colchester. I can't remember the name of the place.
I should know it actually, because it's
Long Melford.
Yeah, at the Long Melford. Yeah, Long Melford. Because that's where it was near there, wasn't it?
Up near Bawley.
Yeah.
That's where we came. The Bawley Church.
Yeah, it's not that far away from here, actually, believe it or not.
Oh, isn't it?
No, because I live on Canby Island. I recently moved from, I was near Rendlesham Forest, actually. The famous Rendlesham Forest incident.
Oh, yes.
You've obviously heard of that. Well, you may not know, but Colonel Holt's a good friend of mine. He's actually stayed at our home.
Funny enough, that's quite spooky, that. I was looking through some of my old stuff the other day, and I've got some photocopies of, like, all these old papers and diagrams and things, and they've all been bound together nicely with these, and it's called the Holt files, the Holt files, or the Holt folder, or something like that. And I contacted Malcolm Robinson. I found these. I haven't got a clue where they come from. He says, will they be any useful to you? So I'm going to send them to Malcolm, and I'm wondering if it's the same bloke, and because it's all about UFOs. There's a big thing on Jenny Randall's. She wrote this huge 3-page comment. That's in there.
Oh, right. Yeah, well, she was involved in the Rendlesham research, wasn't she? The sky crash, which she researched, along with Brenda Butler.
Right. And you know this guy called Holt?
Colonel Holt, yeah. He was involved on the third night. He was actually the deputy chief of the base, actually.
Isn't that mad? Yeah. Well, just weirdly, the other day, I found this folder, this pack of papers, and I thought,
that sounds interesting.
And there's another one with it, and I've showed them to Malcolm Robinson, and he was like, ooh, I love them. And I went, yeah, I'll send them.
I bet he would, yeah.
Yeah. Because at least they're going to go to a good...
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, in actual fact, Malcolm's just had a recent book out about Poltergeist, hasn't he?
The
Salty Poltergeist.
Yeah.
I know he's got another new book out now, coming out very soon, but that was one of his recent ones, which is an amazing book.
Which one's this? The Salty Poltergeist?
The Salty, yeah. Well, all his books are good.
Fantastic book. Yeah, I've got my name on the front of that one as well.
Oh, yes, of course you have.
Yeah, I wrote the foreword for that one.
Absolutely, yeah, of course you have.
Oh, it's a
well, there you go.
In fact,
I'll put that on the site as well. I'd forgotten that, but yes, your name's on the front. You did a forward for it. Yeah.
Oh yes, I've got my fingers in many pies.
Yeah. Well, this is why you're amongst the chosen ones now. This is why they've chosen you to be in among them. No.
Oh, but I don't know how to say the truth.
Anyway, it's been fantastic having you on the show, and as I say, I will put links to all your books on, especially all your latest one, which is coming out on October the 5th, and it's called
October the 5th, yeah.
Parallels and Contagion, or is it Poltergeist Parallels and Contagion?
Yeah. Poltergeist Parallels and Contagion. And if you go onto the White Crow Books website, there's like an information page on there. If you just type in Poltergeist Parallels and Contagion White Crow Books, it brings up a link to that as well.
Right, excellent.
So there's just a bit of information and a blurb about the book.
Excellent.
That's the only one there is at the moment online.
Right.
Apart from my Facebook page. But anyone can go to the White Crow Books website and they can read out.
Yeah.
They can read for themselves what the book's about, and there's like a little section of praise underneath.
Yeah, because it sounds fascinating. I definitely want to get a copy off you anyway. And I do mean a paid copy. I'm not asking for one. But I'll definitely love to have one off you signed.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Yeah, no problem.
Anyway, Darren, thank you very much for coming on. It's been fantastic talking to you.
Thank you very much indeed.
It's something I've been looking forward to talking to you for a while, and as I say, you're a very prolific book writer. So anyone who's interested in ghosts, especially around northern England, look for Darren W. Ritson on Amazon, and the other site you said was, which you can repeat if you like.
White Crow Books.
White Crow.
Is it White Crow Books? That's where the information is on the new book. But you can go on Waterstones online, Amazon.
Oh, Amazon, yeah, because you can probably find them in the bookshop.
Or you can get them all in bookstores. Yeah. Just take in the ISBN number and they'll order it for you.
Excellent.
If you can't get it. But most people shop online these days.
They do, yes. Yeah, everyone's lazy now, aren't they? Well, especially me.
Yeah. I remember the good old-fashioned bookshops when you used to walk in and in a car boot sale.
Oh yeah,
occasionally I'd go.
I love a second-hand bookshop.
And you'd find. Oh, they're fantastic, aren't they?
Yeah, they're looking for that little bit of treasure.
Yeah, sometimes I come across my own books. They say, "Oh, how much is that?" And they'll go, 50 pence, and I'll go, "Oh, yeah, I'll take that," because I'll always give it away to somebody else. I always buy my own books, but I never tell anyone. I never say, "Well, that's me," because they might just think I'm a tart. Look at him showing off. And
there's nothing wrong with that. Say, "Well, that's me actually."
And they go, "Yeah, whatever." Right. And then I'll have to get the ID out.
It's like that old advert, isn't it? I'm looking for a book by A.W. Hartley, wasn't it? He was the old writer.
Yeah.
The old advert.
And what's the name? It's
D.W. Hartley, yes, yeah. Right, anyway, we're turning into a joke now, aren't we? So I think we better back it up. Thanks, Darren. It's been fantastic talking to you again, and as I say, hope to talk to you again soon. And please stay in touch.
No problem, I will. Thank you very much.
Right. Cheers, Darren.
All the very best.
Good night. Thank you very much. Right. Thank you. Bye-bye. Right, you've been listening to Paranormal Dimensions on the Paranormal UK Radio Network. I'm David Young. I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you for listening, and please join us again next week. Bye-bye.
Paranormal Dimensions is as bright and powerful as our celestial star, the sun. And although it's expending thousands of pounds of energy every minute of the day, have no fear. There is plenty left.
Paranormal Dimensions is a regular feature on Mondays on the Paranormal UK Radio Network.